Deeper Than Music Radio. Behind every great song is a greater story.
Deeper than music. The core of you, the fans, the truth is deeper than music. Deeper than music. Simply the truth is the latest, the newest. It's deeper than music. Deeper than music. The core of you, the fans, the truth is deeper than music. Deeper than music. Simply the truth is the latest, the newest. It's deeper than music. Deeper than music.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Deeper Than Music Radio. Behind every great song, there's an even greater story. I'd like to say hello to everybody listening to us on the various podcast platforms that we're on: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. Today we have a very special treat. I had the honor of actually being in attendance at the Suwon Oscar event with this actress. She's been in a lot of movies, and if you like the horror genre, I'm pretty sure you heard of Sadie Katz. She's a WGA writer, director, producer, currently residing in Los Angeles. She's best known for her role in Wrong Turn 6, and also she was in various other movies, such as the remake of Blood Feast, and she was in the award-winning The Visit. The Visit. And also she tried her hand at doing documents. She was in the Bill Murray Experience. And she also has her own award named in her honor, Sadie Katz Hustle Award. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, we have special guest Sadie Katz here on Deeper Than Music Radio. Sadie, how you doing?
I'm okay. Thanks for having me. I'm as good as everybody else, I suppose. Mostly.
Yeah, I know, considering the times that we're in right now.
I know. I think I'm communicating. It's kind of funny. Normally you're like, I'm podcast. You're like, oh, okay, it's nice to talk to everyone. But this is how basically everyone's talking now. We're all on Zoom or Skype or, besides, who are you in your home with? Who are you quarantining with?
Yeah, I'm here with my daughter. We're quarantine central.
Oh, how fun! Just the two of you?
Oh no, actually, we have our family cat Galaxy. I think she's tired of us.
I know. I think the cats are like, "What are you doing home? Are you ever gonna leave? You lazy people!" Yeah, our cats are the same way.
And the funny thing is, when cats get gone, they get lost. Right? You can't find them.
Yeah, that is true. I don't know where our cats go. We have 2 cats, and they just keep looking at us like, are you ever going to leave? Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the first questions I want to ask you, because a funny story is I've never been I like horror movies, partly because they're movies, right? And, I'm not going to get killed in a movie. I get to watch the movie and I live my life. But I remember being 6 years old, my first haunted house experience. Our elementary school had a haunted house, and I made them keep the lights on and walk me out. Fast forward to when the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out. When I lived in San Diego, they had a haunted hotel, and I told the girl that I was dating at the time, I was like, look, if they got a chainsaw, I am out. I was the last person in the haunted house, the first person out of the haunted hotel. Do you have were you always into horror and things of that nature growing up?
I have to tell you, I will not do haunted houses. I am not okay with them. And I'm also they charge $50. They're really expensive, at least in LA. They're big experiences. And I had said okay, I'm going to do a haunted house. And I paid the $50, was all excited to go with the friend. I'm like, I'm an adult. I can do this. He's like, okay, you're going to do this. And then right when I got to the entrance, it was one of those big corn mazes.
Oh, no.
Someone came out with a Texas chainsaw guy came out with a chainsaw, and I just collapsed on the floor and started screaming and crying. Made a huge scene. I mean, embarrassing. This was not me trying to be a scene stealer. And he picked me up, put me over his shoulder, and he was laughing so hard. And I'm like, please, I can't do it. I can't. So I think partly why I do horror films is I'm very easily triggered or risible. even if I'm playing, either the antagonist or the protagonist, like if I have to get into like that head, if I'm scared, I'm someone who like doesn't like to be tickled, or I don't want you to jump out at me. I'm really scared. And if I have to be scary, I'm like, give me a moment. I'm going to get there. So horror films are kind of fun for me to do because my heart gets racing. It's kind of an adrenaline ride for me, which can be good or bad. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to, like I need a little break from doing a horror film. I want to do a comedy or something. Because you go on a ride, like your brain doesn't actually know that you're not experiencing that. You can feel it. Like you're tired at the end of the day.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed it, but there's, I think I kind of go in that direction because it's easier for me to do. I can feel it.
Wow. So it's easy for you to get in character in a horror film. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not like going down the hallway. Like, there's some, they're a little bit more, their styles, like a little bit maybe softer when they're crying. They have like, sometimes people will ask me like to do, like, do your scream. I'm like, I don't have a scream. Whatever comes out of my mouth is what comes out of my mouth. And sometimes that comes out like a very ugly cry. I prefer to see somebody who's about to like get killed on screen where they really look like they're about to get killed, because that's really scary to me more than like somebody who like makeup doesn't get ruined. But, to each their own.
Yeah. So, growing up, did you know that you wanted to be an entertainer or actress?
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't think I ever wanted to be anything else but like an actress. Like, that was it. Maybe I wanted to like direct theater or something, but like from 4 years old, I was like, I'm going to be an actress. That's it. Which is like a blessing and a curse because, it's a hard business, or a writer, but like that's all I ever really wanted to do. So there was nothing else ever that really interested me as much as that, or I even debated on doing.
Wow. And like in your journey, like what steps did you take to become like where you are today? And were your parents, were they supportive? Were you like, look, this is what I want to do. I want to pursue a Hollywood career.
Well, I did it really I didn't really know anyone in the business. So I did it like the very, I want to say the old fashioned way, but this isn't even the old fashioned way. I was always in theater or drama classes. And then I got married really young because I was really religious, like at 19. And then, I had my son at 23, and then I got divorced, and then I moved to LA. And so I really was still just doing theater before that, and like would bring my son to the theater. Or when I was pregnant, I was directing plays. And then when I moved to LA, my son was like a year old, and I was still doing theater and I was taking acting classes. And then I started doing like college and the university, like student films, which is like very much the first step into acting in film and TV. And you start building your reel. And this was like when you couldn't pay companies to do your reel. And I would get Backstage West or Drama Log, and you would mail your headshots for auditions. And then you would get, at the time they didn't even have, I'm dating myself, but they didn't even have like Google Maps. So you'd have to get your old school Thomas guide. So you would call up to get your audition, and they would just give you like a letter and a number, and then you'd have to find it in the Thomas guide. So like if you were pounding the pavement, you were really pounding the pavement. It was really difficult. But that meant that like there was still a lot of competition, but the competition was people that were like super serious. Like a lot went into it because every audition also cost you money. You know, it cost you money for the headshot. It cost you money for the mail. You know, you'd have to mail your envelopes and everything. And then, you know, you didn't just do difficult too, but it's a whole other level. And, then I just kept building my reel and kept, you do films for copy mills and credit. And that's it was a lot of work.
I feel like it was like a weeding out process doing all that.
Yeah. Work. And I mean, look, like back in the day, I'm sure it's like this still for actors, but like it took a long time to get your tape. That was the big thing, is like you would do films to build up your reel for copy mills and credit, but like people wouldn't finish their films for like 3 years. So you do a project and you wait and then you're like, so they, you know, they do say it takes like 10,000 hours or, you know, 10 years to actually be really good at something. And I didn't really get my first lead in a feature film that had like a mini theatrical until about 10 years. And that was like right when I was turning 30. So it was like right when everyone was like, wow, if you turn 30, then and you haven't made it, then you're done. But that was like really when I started booking, you know, leads in films. So that's when like I could still play in my 20s, and that's when I started really booking stuff. So that was like prime time for me, because the other girls were really still green that I was auditioning against, and I had like started to build confidence. And you know, like it's pretty hard to play like, you know, I hate to use this term, but to play like sexy at 25 when you don't really know what sexy is, or you're still, you know, you're still pretty nervous, and you're up against a lot of girls who are new to LA, and you're still caught up on like sexy being just like the prettiest girl in the room, rather than like maybe the most confident girl in the room who's like has been around the block a little bit. So that was kind of fun for me when I discovered that, because I was like, oh, I can win this audition, which is, you know, it's a little bit of a competition with yourself too.
So you were like, as they were green, you were more seasoned. And you mentioned like earlier you were doing theater. Was that the role? Theater was more your avenue, or did like you just happen to get into like the whole horror genre?
I really kind of didn't love film at first, because my heart was really in theater, and I didn't really understand film. It took me a while to fall in love with film, until I think I had done one project, and I kind of like, it occurred to me, it wasn't horror. It was like I had booked a couple of leads in like regular. I did a film which was a really cute, really cool, fun comedy called Nipples and Palm Trees. That was like my first theatrical that did really well on iTunes for like a year. It was in the top 100 films. You know, obviously the title made it stand out, but I had a lot of fun filming that. And that was like, it kind of, Dylan Reynolds was the director for that. And something kind of clicked in me when we filmed that. They were like really big Cassavetes fans. The director was, and the lead, Matt James. And it had kind of clicked in me. He was also the writer, that film is a totally different medium, but there was some benefits to it, and you kind of got to have fun with your performance, and you know, getting to do another take was a gift, where you could switch it up and, you know, try something new. And so then that was when I first started to go like, oh, films, you know, there's some gifts with film that you don't get with theater. And so even though you don't get the rehearsal period, which I really loved in theater, and I really loved my director kind of having like that guru energy, like I got to hold on, like film, I got to have a little bit more control over like my performance in film. And I got to like I could prep it on my own a little bit differently. And, I got to flirt with the camera a little bit. So there was an intimacy with the camera that I really liked. So without sounding, too highfalutin, I did kind of fall in love with the camera and my relationship with like the director and the DP and like a good form. There's a family with theater, that's one thing, but with film, like your crew is your family, and when you have a really awesome crew, there's something really magical about that too. That's very different than like theater that you don't get. There's not a lot of stagehands, and especially in like smaller theater in LA that you just don't get.
Yeah, and I feel like theater is, in my mind, I don't know. I guess I could ask you this. It seems more rigid, and I feel like it's a little bit more pressure because when you're on, you have to be on, and you can't make mistakes. Whereas when you do a movie or a film, you do another take.
Yeah, and you can have like a bad day. Like, sometimes a character, you're always like still discovering your character while you're shooting in film. So you could have like a bad day and say, wow, it's like a couple scenes I'm not feeling went the right way. But, the next day you could say, I can pull this character back. And in theater, you have a bad performance, or it's really tough, because so much of theater is the writing. So in film, you don't always have a great script, but you can have a really good editor. I mean, there's a lot of elements that are kind of fun. Sometimes you can have a script that's not really wonderful, but as an actor, you get to kind of find you get to find something great, and it becomes a challenge with that script and a character, and you can kind of make something out of nothing, which is fun. And, there's just different challenges, and there's something kind of unique about that I like to play with, I mean, I actually just had decided before, COVID-19 that I would go back to do theater, because I did miss that process. But I don't think I'd ever want to like walk away from film entirely or theater. But, I did fall in love with doing film for sure.
And then you hear actors that'll take a break, or they'll go to Broadway, they'll go to theater and then they'll come back to film. So I'm pretty sure you have that as well, that you could have that option to.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I ever got to do something like on a bigger scale in theater, I don't know how I would feel if I would be like massively in love with that and swear away film. I don't know what that experience is because I haven't had it. I mean, we don't have like a huge, film, but theater program in LA. But if all of a sudden I was performing at like the Geffen, I might have a different opinion. I love theater in LA, but that would be pretty awesome. But there are some great playhouses in LA. I mean, Pasadena Playhouse is amazing. The Geffen's amazing. We have some really nice places to go see theater. But so I mean, that's still kind of on my bucket list. But film, there is something really special about, the film family that you get. And when it works and when you have a really great crew, it's really kind of wonderful to see because everyone's doing their job and you're part of a team, and that's cool.
Yeah. So, let's talk about one of the films that you're mostly known for, Wrong Turn 6. How did that fall in your lap?
Well, I did hear that they were doing an audition for something that was shooting in Bulgaria. That was part of a big franchise, and that was super exciting to know that it was a big opportunity because they were using actors that were SAG eligible. They didn't want them to be union because they were doing it overseas, and that's what they wanted to use, but it was 20th Century Fox. So that was like, wow, I here's this huge opportunity for me to be a lead in a 20th Century Fox film that's, it has like a $5 million budget, which in Bulgaria, that's a much bigger budget. The dollar goes huge there. So that was a big deal. And there was actually, no one knew like what franchise it was. And I actually had two directors that I know call me and say, hey, this character is like right up your alley. You could play this character. And they both knew that it was the part of the Wrong Turn franchise. So they leaked it to me, which was really cool. And they told me about it. And I, in turn, said, well, could you do me a favor and write me a letter of recommendation to the casting director, which I normally wouldn't do. But because this was overseas and because there was nudity in it, I felt like it might work in my favor to say like, hey, this girl's really cool to work with and she's not going to change her mind about doing the nudity, which is frequently a problem with actresses. They agree to do it and then last minute they back out. So I had them do that and I had them contact the casting director and I actually hired an acting coach to make sure that my audition was really solid. Mm-hmm. And I just really came in really super the most prepared I could. And I think I went out and bought a new outfit. I went and got my extensions done and blown out in this big like Southern hairdo because I was supposed to be a cannibal from West Virginia. And so, I was like ready to go when I walked in. I had like psyched myself up. So I felt fairly confident that I was going to give it like, the best shot I could. And, it felt like it was probably one of the strongest auditions I ever had, and was like chomping at the bit for the part. So, and I did feel like it was a perfect part for me. So, every now and then, I've had that feeling before where I'm like, this is definitely something I should get. But this was like something I really felt strongly about. And, even at the callback, I was a little bit I was like, this is going to be my goddamn part.
You like, I got this.
Yeah. I wanted it so badly. I know there was, it was good pay and there was just a lot of factors. And I really felt like this was the perfect character for me. I kind of written a similar character in Scorned. So I felt like I knew her already. So, there's a lot of reasons why I was like, I got to play this character. So like getting the part was a very huge fun win. And that was kind of what cemented me like doing horror films and, so it opened up a lot of doors for me to get like Blood Feast. You need something to open up other doors. And I don't only do horror films, but that kind of gave me a little bit of my bread and butter. And then Blood Feast got me to do, Bus Party to Hell, which kind of led me to do Automation, which is a little bit more sci-fi. And, Automation kind of opened me up to something else. And then, oddly enough, somebody saw me do something in Bus Party to Hell and didn't even watch the whole thing, but thought it was kind of funny and part of it and said, I want her for my Christmas movie. So I just finished doing a Christmas movie in January that's very sweet, more Hallmarky and is like a romantic comedy, which I really wanted to do. So, everything kind of, that's the fun thing about acting and just being in entertainment. I'm sure you have the same thing. Like everything kind of dominoes in ways where like whatever's meant to be is meant to be.
Yeah.
And one job sometimes doesn't always work out the way you want it to, but like later on down the road, it leads to another job that you're like, sometimes you could be like, oh, how did I get this job? Oh, well, this job from this time led to this job, which is really the job I wanted, or I would have never met this person, or, they all kind of, like, life kind of does this wonderful domino effect. It's like, we don't know, like, during the coronavirus, a lot of things are happening for people right now, but we don't know what the end result of this will be.
You mentioned something, because it's like life prepares you for things. For example, I remember, like, I have this, well, we'll knock on wood. I mean, even though my industry, besides podcasting and being a musical artist, I love aviation, and I work for American Airlines. Like, I get to see the world, for business and just for, just for pleasure. But prior to getting this job, I had got laid off. And one of my friends had like a great analogy, because I'm like, man, I it was like months that I was laid off, and I actually went to school during that time. And I'm like, why am I not? Things are not happening. And one of my friends said the greatest analogy I ever heard in my life. He was like, life, you have this destination that you got to go to, and you have to go. You want to get off the nearest exit, but you have to go the full course in order to get to where you need to be. And here I have like one of the greatest jobs in the world that allows me the time to, work on music, to do my podcast, and also travel the world. So I always feel that, like you said, even though doors close, life prepares you for greater things. You just don't know it because you don't see the outcome. Right. Yeah.
I really love that. Yeah. I mean, I think also some of that comes with as you get older and you kind of look back and you go, oh my God, that's right. Had I not done that, had I not taken that job, I would have never met my fiance, which is like, how would we have met? Which is why I'm here, which is what happened. Yeah, definitely. Or I would have never gone back to school, which would have never afforded this opportunity.
So, the horror genre, hardcore fans, how does that feel? Like to cement yourself, become a scream queen. Like, what do you love most? Because I feel like horror is like that genre. The fans, the conventions. How is all of that? Like, how Wrong Turn 6 and these movies cemented you? Like, what is the feeling? Like, what's the best aspect of being involved in all of that?
I'm always really grateful, and I just think that the fans are. I mean, that's what it's kind of all about. I mean, look, the horror fans are the ones who are buying DVDs. Like, they're, it's like horror fans and sci-fi fans and maybe DVD collectors buy obviously the bigger DVDs, but they're the ones buying all like the indie DVDs, the hard copy, the hard sells, which I think are really the backbone of being able to continue to do independent film. So, I mean, a lot of gratitude that they're such super fans. Even when they don't like films, they still, like, they're watching and they're rating it, they're talking about it, and that's really cool. I mean, I'm always like kind of surprised when they, you're at like a premiere and they come up and they have your picture and they're like, will you sign this? I go, okay. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So I mean, I'm always like super grateful and kind of taken back. And like, when I was a little girl, I always think my signature looks horrible because my hands are always a little bit shaky because I'm always taken by surprise. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing right now. All right. But when I was a little girl, I would always I never wanted to be famous. I never thought of it that way. I just wanted to act. But, I'd always practice signing my name because that's what you do. You're into autographs and stuff. So, like, if anyone told me that I would sign my autograph or that people would be excited to meet me, that would have been like the greatest thrill of my life. I mean, I think that would flip me out. I would have probably cried myself to sleep because, I mean, I was like a little girl who auditioned for a play at my school, and that like kept me awake at night, whether or not I got a little part in the play. I'd be like, anything, just give me anything. And like that walk to the cafeteria wall to see if I got a part in Grease was like the longest walk of my life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was a big deal. So, I mean, that was like the be all end all. So, yeah, it's a super big deal. It's, you know, the greatest thing. Sometimes when people say like, you know, keep going, you'll make it, you know, and I'm like, what do you mean? I've already made it. Like, this is, you know, I'm grateful for anything. This is a big deal to me. I love it. I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah, and you get to do what your passion. You get to do it for a living, and not too many people can say they do that, right?
Yeah. Sometimes when people are like, you know, do you wish that you won an Oscar? And I'm like, I don't know. I already feel like I have an Oscar. Like, this is already pretty cool for me. I don't, like, you know, that's all fine and good, but like, this is great. I'm already grateful. So anything more is more. Yeah. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, this is great. I'm just continuing to do this and riding whatever wave it is. This is, you know, I'm lucky to be working. It's awesome.
And you also have an award in your name, though, as well, the Sadie Katz Hustle Award. Can you tell us about that?
Cool. I know, that's pretty cool. AmDoc's American Documentary Film Festival, which is really a great film festival in Palm Springs. If you think you know documentaries, one thing that's really cool about Tiger King, which is it called Tiger King? Yeah.
Oh yes, Tiger King. Joe Exotic.
Yeah, that everyone's obsessed about on Netflix, and it is that good. But is that I think people are starting to understand that docs can be all sorts of things. And if you go to, and they're really exciting and they're funny and they can take you on rides that you don't expect, you know, they don't just have to be like a boring documentary that maybe is about the environment. They can be really silly and outrageous. The American Documentary Film Festival, like, is a week-long journey of documentaries that are about everything and anything. And I had my documentary premiere there, The Bill Murray Experience, and it was one of the best of the fest documentaries. But I really, like, you know, I really did everything I could under the sun to promote my doc when it was there, including handing out balloons and going on the radio and podcasts and newscasts. And I hustled my heart out to get people and fill seats there. And one of the things that the Documentary Film Festival did is they ended up creating an award to encourage other filmmakers that's what they would like other filmmakers to do. Because sometimes what happens when filmmakers get their documentary or film, this is at a lot of film festivals, is a lot of times once they get to that finish line, they're worn out. You know, you're just tired, or it's really hard as a filmmaker to also promote your own film. Something happens, you know, directors tend to be somewhat shy, or they're just exhausted by the whole process. You know, you're working on your film for sometimes a year, sometimes more, especially documentary films. Sometimes they're a couple of years to get your doc done. That's the nature of doing a documentary. Then once you finally get it in the film festival, you tend to be like, there it is, everybody. There's my doc. It's amazing. And they forget that they actually have to get people to come to the documentary, and they have to support other filmmakers, which I also went and saw like 50 hours of documentaries during the week. So there's something really important about that. So that was something that they made an award for that, for the filmmakers the next year, to have an award that was about like to encourage other filmmakers to hustle in supporting their award. So they named the award after me, which was really cool and kind of exciting. And, you know, I feel very honored and kind of flattered about it. And, you know, it kind of reminds me when I feel sometimes about like giving up. I'm like, you can't give up. You're Sadie Katz, you hustle. Yeah. But, you know, it is a hard thing because we're always hustling in LA, and, you know, we're in the land of self-promotion, and sometimes that probably drives people a little bit nuts online and in person. But, you know, self-promotion isn't always about telling people that you're the greatest. It's just sharing what you're doing as an art This is my art. And, but it also means, if you're promoting yourself, you're promoting others. But, I try to balance that out with also, encouraging my friends, male and female, and also, sharing who I am. So I'm not just like, here's a picture of me in my bikini, watch my movies, but also like, here's me not doing as well. Like I'm exhausted today.
Yep. But it also
here's a pretty sunset or something.
It speaks to your your hustle, your drive, and your passion for what you do. How was it different doing a documentary versus doing film?
Oh gosh, I think what's funny is like film, the script drives the story, and then when you go in the edit, it kind of, there's like 3 phases of film. First you write it, then, so that's like a very straight, you're in the writing. So that's one process. And then you film it. That's an entirely different process. So the script kind of takes a different journey. And when you film it, it changes a bit. And then in the edit, it changes a bit. Well, in a documentary, you may start off making, a documentary about polar bears in Alaska. And then you discover that, that while you're making, there's actually, one bar in Alaska that all the people that are trying to protect the polar bears are, trying to save this bar. And that's really important. And if the bar goes down, the people that protect the polar bears are going to move out. And so the film follows the story and doesn't actually, it follows the story for you. So that's like documentaries tend to change on you. So you have to the documentary follows the story, not so much what you lay out. So in a good doc, it flips on you, which is, the Joe Exotic thing flips a bunch of times.
Yeah,
I think they originally were doing a story, like the documentary maker was originally doing a story about the lizards there. That was the original story. And then it turned into, then it was going to be about Joe Exotic. And then it turned into about the girl and the murder of her husband. And then it flipped back into the copyright thing. And then it flipped back to about the husband. And then, he goes to jail. And then the guy comes back, or the guy who ends up buying the zoo is kind of the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a great example of a documentary that just keeps following this story that kind of unfolds. And that's documentary filmmaking at like a high art form where you're like, wow. And I mean, and in the edit, you have to, the edit's really difficult because you have all this footage. And now you have to tell it in a story where you put it together. And that's like, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And sometimes you don't have enough footage. So you have to get like archival footage and figure out like where your story is and where it turned. And you're also kind of editing it as you go, and then you get thrown for a loop. And then, you have to get a lot of the thing that I didn't know fully is there's a lot of fair usage laws, and there's a lot of things like that. So there's a lot more things that you have to do as far as with lawyers and things and clearance that like, that's the stuff that you're like, oh shit. Okay. I mean, it's a thing. So it's really interesting to learn, and it's a whole other beautiful, great art form that's not an easy one to do.
And the fun fact, Joe, I guess they transferred Joe Exotic. He's now here in the DFW area at a Fort Worth prison. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just read that in one of our news articles here. But
where was he? Was he in Vegas?
I think he was somewhere. But I wanted to say, like, as with all our great interviews, we have about 5 minutes left. I wanted to touch on like the future. Like, I know you were in the latest release, Clown Fear, but I wanted to give you a little self promotion. Like, besides Clown Fear, what other projects have come out, and what's the future hold for Sadie Katz?
Sure. So right now, if you go on my Instagram, under my profile, there's a sneak preview on Vimeo that's like a very limited release. The director right now is like a really great thriller with a twist ending called Megan. It's a little bit hard candy meets misery. So I would love for anyone to take a sneak peek at that. It's on Vimeo, and you can click on that under my profile on Instagram. Also, Thomas Churchill is the director of Amityville Harvest. That will be released through Lionsgate Video soon, very soon. And then, let's see, I have another film coming out soon, and I just blanked out on it. A Fargo Christmas will be coming out. I think it might be coming out through like Christmas films over the summer. They're going to be doing, like, Hallmark will be doing this really fun thing of releasing Christmas over the summer. And I always keep people posted through my Facebook and my Instagram, where I'm also going to do for BET. I have a film coming out that's a really fun film called The Stepdaddy. It's very scary and fun and kind of cheeky, so look for that. And always just follow me on my Instagram under Sadie Katz and Twitter at Sadie_Katz.
Wow. And I mean, thank you for sharing your time with us, and just the whole story. My favorite is the Sadie Katz Hustle Award. You gotta go out there and hustle. And like you said, like right now, which is interesting about, and you talk about physical copies, like what they're doing right now, because of the unprecedented time, we're getting like movies early on Amazon and different streaming platforms. So.
Yeah, I wonder, like, some of my films, they're like, don't talk about this yet because we're not releasing it. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Some people are saying that they're going to release some stuff early, some of them aren't. So it'd be very interesting. I know that we're not doing, I guess some of the movies aren't. Sony isn't releasing any movies over the summer.
I heard about that. Yeah, that's crazy.
I know. So we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for taking the time to come talk to us. And yeah, and we look forward to your future releases and when all of this is over with. So
I know. Please stay safe and healthy and take care of your girl and your kitty.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, the cat's kind of got lost. I know she'll be happy. She looks at us like, aren't you guys going to go outside and do something?
I know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's another great episode of Deeper Than Music Radio with Sadie Katz, and this is Mark signing off. Thank you for listening.
Deeper than music. The core of you, the fans, the truth is deeper than music. Deeper than music. Simply the truth is the latest, the newest. It's deeper than music. Deeper than music. The core of you, the fans, the truth is deeper than music. Deeper than music. Simply the truth is the latest, the newest. It's deeper than music. Deeper than music.